Hi, I'm Dan West. Hi, I'm Dan West, and hi, I'm Dan West. Welcome to my casting couch. No, I'm kidding. I went from mowing lawns to running a 5 figure per month business from anywhere in the world, and today I'm going to share with you how I did it. So, the first thing we need to address here is why do most people not have freedom? Like, why do most people not have location freedom, time freedom? They don't have mind freedom. That's why. Like that's the truth. They are scared. Most people are absolutely petrified to take a risk, to look stupid, to fail. And this is what stops people achieving freedom. Now, for me, where my story started, I was in a 9 to 5 and I was doing a sales job. And I'd been traveling for a few years and I'd come home from traveling because of the pandemic. And I was like, right, I need to get a 9 to 5. When I got a sales job, absolutely smashed it there because I was like the only person that was doing personal development. And so it showed in my results. I was meditating and I was taking care of my health and I was really taking my performance seriously. So I ended up smashing it. I was like top of the team within a few months. And then they thought that the pandemic was basically going to stop or end. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Bali. I'm going to finally go to Bali. And what happened is I said to my work, they wanted to promote me, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to Bali, and I booked my flights and everything. And they were like, well, that's a shame, but good luck. The next day, the very next day, there was a news announcement. TV came on. Yeah, travel, like you can't travel anywhere. There's another wave of the pandemic. You can't leave the country. So just like that, I was stuck again. I was stuck in the UK. I was jobless. I didn't have a choice. So what I did is I went and got a job as a delivery driver, and that was just killing me. Like that was just absolutely killing me. Like, don't get me wrong, it was fun at times because I could just put like a podcast on or an audiobook or some Spanish lessons on in the van because I was driving this big delivery truck. But I just felt so unfulfilled. The shifts would be like 4 hours. They felt like they dragged on for 12. It was just a nightmare for me. Like it was just, I felt so like I wasn't using my potential. And at nowhere, this sort of like idea hit me and my best friend at the time who I was living with. We were sharing a flat to start a gardening company. So we started putting out ads and basically I got my van and spent the money, pretty much a lot of my savings, a lot of our savings on gardening equipment, like old tools, because we couldn't get a full brand new kit like set because we were just getting started. And basically started mowing lawns. And that got me out of the delivery driver sort of trap that I was in. It got me out of the 9 to 5. It wasn't even a 9 to 5 really at that point. It was just like a job. But it got me into something that was my own. And anyway, we start mowing lawns for a living. I remember the first job we turned up and oh wow, we turned up at this guy's house. His name was Dave. Shout out Dave. And we had these old tools, and he was in his front room or his back room, and we were in his garden. Imagine right now, like you're looking out into the garden, and you see these two guys, and they're trying to start up a petrol, like motorized extension, like they're called like hedge trimmers. Imagine you see them, and they're trying to rev start the engine, but it just won't start, and it's got this like really like tired, exhausted, just fatigued, old sort of sound to it. It's like it's just not starting. Well, that was basically us for like half an hour in his garden, and he must have been wondering like, what are these guys doing? Anyway, we did that job, and that got us really started. And after that, things started to pick up a bit. Got some new tools, etc. It was great. It was great running our own business. But I don't know, winter came, and winter was winter was savage. Winter was like, it was really hard to do the work. There was hardly any work. So we only had like a few like loyal clients who stuck with us over winter. So we had like 3 jobs a week, wasn't making much money really, barely covering rent. We had a really good summer, but the winter was really cold. And so this like led us to a bit of a crisis. You know, is this sustainable? Can this business last? We can't do this business year round. So therefore, it's not something we can really continue to do full time. We had to find something else. And that is when we found online business. That is the moment where, like, that's really how, that was like the start. Like, imagine they say every man has 2 lives. Well, the second starts when you find online business, because I'm sure I've told this story before. I'll link a video to how I lost 90K, that video. But long story short, we made more money in 3-4 months than like any doctor makes in a year. I say any doctor, like a doctor in the UK makes in a year. Like, we basically made $240,000 from an online community which we launched. And yeah, that was the wake up call, because we had this winter where we were making no money, and then we found online business and we just grinded on that business over the course of the winter and made all this money, and was like, okay, online is where the money is. It's quite literally impossible to make that kind of money in that span of time if you're not doing something online or if you're not doing something illegal. It was just, it just was good timing for us. But again, like the game that we got into specifically wasn't 100% sustainable, so we didn't continue that. But it was an eye opener. You know, it was like losing your virginity, should we say. And so my eyes were now open, because when you're on the internet, you have access to the whole world. Now, are you going to be able to reach the whole world? No. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But if you reach the right people, you have the whole world at your fingertips. So if you have the right strategy and you have the right system and you have the right ideas, you can access this unlimited pool of individuals that will pay you and give you money, right? So anyway, we figured out how much money you can make online, but we still didn't have the location freedom, still didn't have the time freedom, because that business wasn't sustainable. A lot of people think when you make that kind of money, your whole life's going to change. Mine did, but it didn't change me financially. You know, the irony was that we actually lost money on that project, but my eyes were now open, and that's the whole point. So, yeah, funny story, but that's how I got started. Anyway, the next chapter, the next part of this decided, didn't want to stay in the UK, couldn't do another winter there. Decided to go back to Australia, where I traveled before. And it was in Australia, like this was, so imagine like the wake up call was, so being in the 9 to 5 was obviously the pain, right? And I went searching. The gardening job was, a gateway into the new world, which is the online business space. Still didn't have complete freedom, still didn't have everything figured out. So that led me back to Australia to try and figure out, okay, like what would freedom look like? Well, it would look like going to Australia and figuring it out. So when I got to Australia, that was this was the turning point. So this was when everything shifted. Like, this is when freedom stopped becoming an idea and actually started becoming a reality. So was in Australia, was back gardening, was gardening again for just some income. We had our gardening business back home, which we were running remotely, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to sustain a full-time life in Australia. It's not a cheap place to live. But anyway, I started really getting into my own personal development. I started getting into spirituality. I was consuming a lot of books, probably more books than I've ever consumed. My discipline and my routine was absolutely dialed, and I got absolutely jacked and shredded. I got like the leanest, the best shape I've ever been in my life. I was saving money. Everything was just like going really, really well. And that led me to research a little bit online, like how can I make 10K a month? Like I sort of put my pride to one side and I was like, let's go online. How can I make 10K a month online? Like, I'm already here. I'm in Australia. I don't want to carry on working on the tools. I'm consuming so many books. I'm jacked. I'm shredded. Like, how can I do this? And that was when, like, this was it. This was the turning point. I came across a video from a guy called Ali Abdaal. And Ali Abdaal told me in this video, you can make 10K a month writing online. And English at school was my favorite subject. I was already doing a lot of marketing material for my gardening company, my gardening business. And I'd also had some freelance work over the last sort of few years doing some freelance copywriting and some writing. And so here I am. I've got a business that doesn't pay me that well, but has enabled me to sort of like escape to Australia. I've got all this like knowledge of like how to make money online. And then I find this video, how to make 10K a month writing online. I'm like, And I basically click into this video, and Ali Abdaal tells me, if I build a personal brand by writing blogs and publishing content with written content, I can make 10K a month, right? And so I'm like, whoa, okay, great. Like, this is awesome. I love writing. And this is a funny detail to the story is someone I was working with gardening, he was a bit younger than me, about 3 years younger than me, sort of borderline Gen Z. He was already using ChatGPT to write assignments for his uni. So I thought, okay, well, I can game the system here, and I can use ChatGPT to write me blogs, right? And this is about 4, maybe even 5 years ago now. This is like 2022, 2023. So I'm like, AI was just coming on the scene. Anyway, I got AI to write me some blogs, and they were trash. They were really, really bad. And I was like, I can't send this out. So anyway, I built a website. I started writing the blogs myself, and I would basically spend the whole day, Saturday and Sunday, locked in writing these blogs and just loving it, like loving writing long form, loving spilling my heart out about everything that was important to me at the time and everything. And I basically I put an Instagram story out every Sunday saying, new blog has been published, right? So people start reading them. And I didn't realize how divisive my opinions were, because I wasn't writing to like try and like sell anything. I was just writing to share my opinions and my beliefs and my ideas and what I was learning about. And I was listening to like 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. You know, I was listening to podcasts with Chris Williamson. I was listening to evolutionary psychology. I've always been into politics. I have a degree in politics. So my views were quite divisive, like not intentionally, but they were upsetting people. So I started getting all this negative feedback and all this hate. So I was like, okay, this place isn't for me. I don't think I should be posting on Instagram, but I want to keep writing. So I kept writing, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should go back to Twitter, because Twitter is where we launched that 240K community. We used Twitter to build that audience up. And so I went back to Twitter. I started a personal account on Twitter, and I started posting content to try and drive people to my blog. When I arrived on Twitter, I realized people aren't really like doing blogs here anymore. Like people are doing email lists. People have their own email lists, which they have people subscribe and then they send them these emails either once a week or once every day. And I thought, how is this better? Surely a blog's better, but no. I didn't realize that when you have an email list, you have people's contact details. You can send them emails whenever you want, and then eventually you can sell things to them. Anyway, that's more on that in a bit. So I end up finding some accounts. I end up finding people like Dakota Robertson, who end up becoming a mentor of mine. Dan Coe, who definitely, I bought one of his courses. I bought his course, was like one of the biggest courses on writing online, which was the 2-Hour Writer, which I think everybody on Twitter at the time had consumed. So shout out to Dan for making an awesome course, changed a lot of people's lives. And I just started learning from people ahead of me. But the difficulty was, even though I was learning how to write for Twitter, and I was learning how to write threads and stuff, something wasn't connecting. I was really struggling to build an audience. And it was when I joined, I finally invested it was my first big investment at $1,200. I remember where I was. At this point, I was in Bali. I'd gone from Australia to Bali, and long story short, I had a long distance relationship that didn't work out, and I decided to stay in Bali. And I took a trip to Lombok. So anyone that follows this channel will know that Lombok's been it's been a big location, or rather a location that's been it's popped up a lot. It's been a big part of my journey. But this was the first time I went there. This was about 3 or 4 years ago. Went there for a surf trip. Ended up getting sick. When I got, so I didn't surf at all. And after I finished, almost like being ill, there was a Twitter space that popped up. There was a bunch of guys in my on my feed who I'd been watching for like about a month, and they were growing really fast. And I was like, they're launching this thing. It's only $1,200. I don't have it liquid right now, but I have a credit card, so why not? So I invested. I jumped in. Well, I wasn't sure what to expect. I wasn't expecting any kind of result. I just wanted to be a part of something. I wanted to learn from these guys. They were smashing it. They were going viral. They were building audiences. They had this good vibe. And I joined their cohort, and it was amazing. Like, it was. Some people were in there criticizing that maybe it wasn't like the most well organized, but I don't think that was what made it good. What made it good was the community was just vibing, and they had genuine knowledge that, they were just sharing what would work for them. And so I paid the money. I went through that. I of course, not being a dick, but this is usually what I do when I commit to something. I'm like, I want to be the best. So I was top of the class, right? So I had this personal brand that wasn't growing. But I was passionate about growing my email list or getting people to my long form blogs, right? I decided, because progress was slow, that I joined a cohort. I joined a coaching program to get better at writing and to grow my audience and to actually hopefully monetize it. I ended up smashing it with them, and I went from being like a nobody on Twitter to growing like 1,000 followers in the course of the next month. Can't remember the exact amount, but I basically I crossed the 1,000 follower mark, and just my account started taking off. Within about 7 weeks of joining that program, I monetized my audience. Got my first client at $899 a month. And the next day, so I was buzzing. And then the next day, I published a tweet saying, look, I've just signed my first coaching client from Twitter. I'm gonna release a video thread, which is like a video a day, all in like this Twitter thread, explaining how I did it, step by step. So I reverse engineered the whole system, and I started posting daily. Anyway, the second day I posted, I got another client. So I went from basically investing $1,200 to making and that client paid $899. So about $1,700 I made back within about 8 weeks. So shout out to you guys for helping me do that, for basically helping me monetize my personal brand. Like, that was it. That was the moment. I would never have been able to have monetized my brand and monetized my writing and monetized my what I was doing if I hadn't have invested, if I hadn't have been committed, and if I hadn't have had the right guidance of guys that I liked. Were they like that much better than me at writing? No. But they had figured out what works, and they had paid other people to learn that. So I was basically paying them to learn what they'd paid to learn. And there's so many people online that be like, that's a pyramid scheme. I'm like, is it? Like, is it a pyramid scheme? Like, I'm learning from people who know how to like do something well, who know how to monetize, who know how to grow an audience. Like, why would I not want to learn that? Is it a pyramid scheme, or like, am I just learning skills that are going to benefit me for the future? Because it doesn't matter if I decide to stay in if I decided to stay in the Twitter game or not. Like, I've now learned how to build an audience, what content resonates, what messaging resonates, the power of community. I wasn't even looking to monetize. I was just looking to do better. So the reality is, it was the best decision I made. Anyway, fast forward about 8 months, and I figured some more things out, and I ended up having a $14,700 month. That was my first 5-figure month. And the few months leading up to that, I was struggling a little bit, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Of course, monetized that audience after joining that cohort. I had a few other months. I had an 8K month, which was good. Then there was a bit of a struggle again. Then in April, I think it was 2024, I had that 14.7K month. And I signed 3 high-ticket clients that month, and they all wanted the same thing. They wanted to learn how to write better, grow their brand, and monetize. And that was just that was a game changer for me. I remember I replaced my laptop. I had an old shitty MacBook Air from 2014 or something. I finally was able to get rid of that and replace it and buy a MacBook Pro, which I was so pumped about. I was able to hire more mentors who I really was excited to work with. I was able to immediately book a flight to somewhere that I wanted to go. Yeah, that was when I was like, this is why I did it. This is why I've taken all this risk. This is, when I think back to Australia, which was a year and a half before that moment, it was about a year, just over a year, 1 year and 3 months or so. Yeah, 1 year and let's just say about 14 months before, I was just hopeful about building a brand and making 10K a month. And then I actually did it. I exceeded 10K. And that was when I was like, wow, there is no going back anymore. Hired a bunch more mentors, figured out how to launch more offers and how to monetize even better, and invested more in myself, took more risks, figured more things out. The problem I had was I was really struggling to keep it sustained above 10K. And then I figured that one out at the end of 2024. I went to Colombia. And just when I thought I don't know if I can even afford to go to Colombia, because income after that 14.7K month, it dropped a lot consistently. It wasn't there. But then I figured out how to get it back up. Funny enough, I hired another mentor. I had enough money to pay for my, to learn things, high ticket as well. But I eventually figured out how to make it more sustainable. And then I was in Colombia, and when I arrived, I was like, oh, bugger, I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford this really, to consistent 10K months and above. So clients I was signing clients left, right, and center. It was just like, it was awesome. And yeah, like that is really like when I woke up one day in Colombia and I was like, I've done it. Like I'm consistently making 10K months. I'm in Colombia. Like I never thought I would end up going there. I wasn't just there. I was there with my ex-girlfriend, and I was like, I was paying for everything. Like I felt like the man. I was paying for absolutely everything. So yeah, it was a good feeling. And the last year and a half, so like that was 2024. We're now like halfway through, nearly 3/4 of the way through 2026. The journey since then has been one of like, the biggest struggle for me was no longer like, do the systems work? Do we know what content works? Like, didn't need any more information. It all became a problem of identity. Identity has been the hardest thing to sustain, because human beings, you know, the brain and the mind is a funny thing. You know, quite often it will reject success, and it will reject what works in favor of novelty, in favor of shiny object syndrome. And I wouldn't say I've stayed on this path, but over the course of the last year and a half, I've been more focused on clients, more on clients, and seeing who I can help, and working with higher level people. Because once some bigger creators found out about me and how I was able to do things with, and by the way, this is an important point, those 10K months and everything like that was done with no more than 5,000 followers. Like that 15K month I had like, yeah, about 5,000 followers on Twitter, and like basically nothing going on Instagram, 200 YouTube subs, not much, not a big audience at all. So eventually, like when some bigger creators found out, like, how have you done this with such a small audience? I helped them out. Like I helped Connor. He was a big part of my journey last year. Helped him build an offer that he took to 47K per month. And I've just constantly been sort of like supporting him, and we've been supporting each other, but supporting him along the way. He's definitely like the biggest case study. My friend Matt reached out to me and said, you know, see what you're doing. How do you do it? Helped him launch an offer, made 20K in 5 days. That like opened his eyes to what was possible. Now he's a full-time coach, you know, living wherever he wants. It's actually in the UK right now, where I am. There was another Connor who, one of my first big clients, who, yeah, within 3 months, he made 8K from an audience like less than 1,000 followers. They all started out as basically beginners. Yeah, they had skills, but they all started out as beginners, and they just took a risk. So like, this is kind of ended up divulging into like my story, right? But here's the thing. If you want freedom, so like, what have we learned from my story? Like, if you want freedom, you have to be willing to take a risk, and you need to acquire skills. Take a risk, and learn skills. If you can do those two things, even if you're a beginner, you will succeed. You will achieve freedom. You will. But you have to be willing to take a risk, and you have to acquire skills. Now, what is an example of what's the risk I took? I invested in myself. I made a decision. I wanted to be free. I took a risk trusting Ali Abdaal. I took a risk listening to YouTube videos like this and thinking like, maybe that's possible. Took a risk. I risked, you know, not doing a normal job. I could have got a 9 to 5 and like had a stable income. I risked my savings when I started the gardening business. I risked credit card debt when I bought the coaching program. Even just moving to Australia, moving to Bali, and everything I've done has been a risk, and it always pays off. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is acquiring skills. Like, I couldn't have done it without the skills. And what did I learn? Like, so if you want to build a personal brand that actually makes money, and I don't care if you want to launch an agency off the back of it, I don't care if you want to launch a coaching program or something else, right? The truth is you need to acquire skills, and the fastest way to acquire those skills is to just pay somebody to teach you. Like, that is the fastest way. That's what I did. I paid Dakota Robertson $5K to learn how to write better. I paid the Growth Army guys, that first cohort, I paid them how to grow an audience. And they helped me monetize it. So yeah. I paid Tom Benny, who's a copywriting, he's an ex-Agora copywriter. He wrote a sales page that made $2.7 million. Taught him how to write, I paid him to teach me how to write better copy, write landing pages, write sales pages, write offers. I paid JK Molina to help me how to build a system, like a more sustainable system, so I wouldn't keep going up and down. I paid this guy Atlas, shout out Atlas, mainly just to pick his brain. He was a PR strategist for, like, I think it was like a high up politician in Morocco. Like might have even been the head of state there. I wanted to learn what he knew. And so this is the theme, is just don't be afraid to pay somebody for what they know so that you can build your skill set. Because if you have the right skill set, like for me, the skill set, like AI isn't a skill in my opinion. Like AI is an amplifier for a lot of the skills that you should be learning. The skills that I learned, which is writing, copywriting, they're different. Writing's more like thinking and communication, whereas I think copywriting's more about selling and persuading. You then have sales, like learning how to sell one-to-one, learning how to sell one-to-many, huge skill. You have branding. Branding is a massive skill that you need to learn, personal branding, which ties into writing actually. Design's a big one. Figuring out what you like, what you don't like in terms of like visual identities, the right colors, etc., that match your vibe. Even stuff like accounting and all the boring stuff. Like you need these skills. When you stack these skills, leadership, of course. Leadership when you build a team, like I have a team that's growing right now, or rather that we're solidifying together. Like, if you are willing to take a risk and you're willing to acquire skills, freedom is inevitable. The reason you're not free yet is because you haven't taken a risk and you haven't learned the skills that give you the freedom. Skills give you freedom. Skills give you freedom. And so, yeah, that is how I achieved freedom. That's how I've been able to make 5-figure months from anywhere in the world. So I've been able to achieve freedom. Right now I'm in the UK. Next month, I'll probably go to Thailand. We'll see after that, maybe go back to Bali. Again, like this can be your life and you can achieve this level of freedom. Now, it's not all about like location freedom. Maybe you're just like maybe you're just in the 9 to 5 and you're like, I just want a remote income. I just want an online income so I can do better for myself, so I can actually live the life I want. Well, if that's you and, you're thinking, I can't do this for another 5 years. It's more expensive. It's more costly to do this for another 5 years than to just take a risk and bet on myself and pay to learn the skills I need to get out of this. Then I encourage you to check out Arthur. So Arthur is our community of people who want to build a brand, who want to basically make their next 5K a month from writing online. Now, am I promising you're going to make 5K a month when you join? No. And I don't do any guarantees of that, but I'll tell you what I can guarantee. We will give you everything you need, all the skills you need to achieve freedom if you put in the work and if you want it. And the coolest thing is you'll be around literally hundreds of people who are on the same journey as you, who are learning how to write better, who are learning how to build a brand, who are learning how to build an audience, who are learning how to build offers, all the things they need to achieve freedom. So if you want to make your next 5K a month in the next 90 days from writing online and learning how to brand yourself, then there's a link down below. Check it out. The amount of people in there, we're changing lives. There's a guy in there, Krish, who's already made $500. He actually joined for like basically hardly anything. Like he basically paid nothing, and he's already made $500. So like the ROI is insane. So there you go. So I suggest you go check that out. That's everything for today. Remember, freedom is a result of taking a risk and acquiring skills. If you do that, success is inevitable. All right. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.